The Wes Penre Papers. A Journey Through the Multiverse. The Third Level of Learning. The Third Level of Learning. Paper number 5, The Alpha Draconians and the Creation of the Starhuman. By Wes Penre, Wednesday, March 6, 2013. Revised, Saturday, March 14, 2015 at 4:05 p.m. http://wespenre.com. Part 2. 5. Gaia as the center of the galaxy. The metaphysical age of the universe is 19.14 billion years, while the age of the physical universe is 13.8 billion years. This, Abraxas explains, is because electromagnetically, the universe is always oscillating at light speed, but expands at less than light speed in its matter content. Our solar system crystallized 4.6 billion years ago, and Earth was created only 40 million years thereafter. The physical Earth then became the new Earth through the clustered material which forms the metallic, elemental Earth. This means that the old Earth had existed in a metaphysical form before it got densified. It was a phase shift between geometrical dimensions which allowed the old Earth to transform into the new Earth. The metaphysical Earth is as old as the universe itself, and exists simultaneously with the new Earth. The old Earth is now about to phase shift again, this time from a line spacetime to a more hyperspacetime, while still keeping its line spacetime as a kernel for the Ascension process. Last time Earth transformed, it did it the other way around, from hyperspacetime to line spacetime, and became a material Earth. Translated into plain English, Abraxas is saying that the new Earth which is coming to life through this next phase shift is part physical and part metaphysical, moving into the fifth dimension. Earth herself is spiritualized by the Mother Goddess. Many pagans and Gnostics have known this for a long time. In ancient times people worshipped and even made sacrifices to Mother Earth. I think everybody has heard once or twice at least that the Earth has been called the Goddess. The Thebans call her the home of the great Dragon Mother. When asked who owns the planet, Abraxas says that it belongs to all alien species. Taken out of context, this would upset many people, but what she means is that the universe exists of only humans in different stages of development, depending on within which time frame they are operating in, if we think of it from a 4D linear time perspective. Abraxas says that Earth, however, whom the Alpha Draconians call Gaia, is not a planetary consciousness, and not even a star consciousness, but a galactic consciousness who mimics the Andromedan consciousness as a divine placeholder. But more than that, Gaia is about to transform Hunabku's, the galactic center, consciousness as well, through and by the opening of the 12th dimension, and the Alpha Draconians will enter as universal consciousness, they being the creator race of the universe. The Alpha Draconians are the Council of Theban, but Abraxas says that we humans are very tightly connected to this council as well, meaning that we are the descended Thebans, and from that perspective we are also the fallen angels. Of course, they can call it whatever they want to confuse the matters, and to take the attention away from the real fallen ones, who are Enki/Lucifer, and those I call the Syrian Alliance. However, the Thebans want to make the statement that the Syrians, as well as Enki, are Thebans, too, just like we humans. As archetypes, they are our ancestors, hence humans, or of the human family. It's easy for those who don't have the bigger picture to swallow what Abraxas says, because her stories have their own logic. 5.1. Gaia's sync vortex and the alien agenda explained. There are billions, perhaps trillions of planets in the universe, but according to the Thebans, there is only one planet such as Gaia. This difference between Gaia and any other planet in the universe also explains the so-called alien agenda, where people see and interact with different kinds of aliens. I have talked a lot in my papers about the living library with its incredible variety of life forms. Nowhere else in the universe can you find a planet like ours, allegedly. There is something in the center of Earth that makes her very special and unique, one of her kind. Indeed, Earth is the only planet where life as we know it can form. All other life forms are interdimensional and of higher dimensions, even those who live on other planets. Nowhere else could you experience life like you do here. In other words, all other life forms would be less dense and more plasmic than those who are born on Earth. They would be more fluid and electromagnetic. They are, however, capable of inhabiting bodies of a more plasmic nature than the dense ones we use here in the lowest of dimensions. However, should the more plasmic life forms come down to Earth and interact with the 4D reality, our denser world would densify their plasmic bodies, and all of a sudden they would appear the way they look like in their plasmic bodies, be it reptilians, insectoids, humanoids, greys, or you'll name it. And there we have the reason why people see those extraterrestrials in what appears to be a solidified form, such as ourselves. Albeit, should this happen, such encounters must be quite temporary, because the alien plasmic life form would soon feel very restricted, uncomfortable, and imprisoned here on Earth, and would leave as soon as they could. Abraxas explains. The parameter of the physicality is the inversion of the light speed c. When the universe was born, the source of all that is also required a sink of all that is to source itself to. This sink became like a vortex. This vortex is at the center of the Earth, and it is from this the archetype of the mythological hell eventuated. The c in light speed c refers of course to the scientific letter which symbolizes the speed of light in Einstein's theory of general relativity. What she's saying here is that in the core of Earth there's a sinkhole which works like a vortex, where all that is, i.e. the goddess, can descend from the void down to 4D. So, 19+ billion years ago, when the metaphysical universe was created, there was not yet a physical Earth, but the vortex existed. Since then, this vortex has expanded out and does now surround Earth like an aura, and within this aura, the Moon and 9% of Mars exist. This vortex is higher dimensional and cannot be detected in 4D and with 4D instrumentation. But any plasmic energy being who enters the vortex will be densified and start vibrating within the 4D frequency. This is, according to Abraxas, why the plasmic UFO crashed in Roswell in 1947. Another thing I explained about the living library in level I was that creator gods who created our fauna and flora left behind smaller versions of themselves, insects and flora, living organisms that looked much similar to the creator gods themselves. A typical example is the praying mantis, which has its counterpart in an advanced creator god somewhere in the universe. Other examples are the big cats, wolves, dogs, pet cats, elephants, whales, dolphins, etc. Some of them spy on us through their earthly counterpart, or you can contact the creator gods by communicating with these animals. Another thing, however, which Abraxas brings up is that these same founders can come here in spirit and in their plasmic bodies and attach themselves to their animal imprint and thus don't have to be stuck here. They can leave the animal, insect, or fauna host anytime they wish. This procedure, supposedly, happens quite often. They simply nano-travel to here and use their counterparts while staying on Earth. This way they also avoid detection. This will engage in energy transduction between higher and lower dimensions. So how is this vortex used in today's world? Well, first of all, aliens out there, or future selves, know about this vortex, and many of them can use it. The PTB on our planet know about it too, and spend a lot of time, energy, and money trying to make use of it. However, the use of the vortex is determined by a being's frequency. If it is too low, the being can't use it. This is the case with the power elite. Only the upper echelons of the shadow government knows about the non-physical control of humankind, but they know about star beings coming in through the vortex in the core of the Earth, which is also where our idea of hell comes from, says Abraxas. This totally freaks the PTB out and they spend lots of money trying to figure out how to stop these plasmic beings from entering our world. This is also one reason why the Syrian Alliance has allowed other civilizations here while they have still been in charge of Earth. The overlords can close down other vortexes, stargates, and wormholes, but they have no power over the vortex in the middle of the Earth, because it is divine. Hence, it has been impossible for them to stop each and every star being from coming in here. In addition, the alien agenda is encapsulated in the understanding that Gaia belongs to everybody, not just we humans in 4D. They all consider Gaia their mother. Now, Abraxas and the Theban Council from the 12th dimension are preparing for the harvest, which already started in 2009, she says. People who passed over that year and who qualified for the initiation were taken aside and given 5D bodies to incarnate in. These people, some who have already reincarnated on Earth again, are the absolute pioneers for the new Earth, programmed and ready, I would add, with more graduating happened in 2011 and 2012. More will graduate in the few years to come. Some will die and receive 5D bodies then, while others will be picked up in spaceships. So, what does the reader think we should name the new Earth? Terra Nova? No, wait. Don't waste your energy, because we have no say. The Thebans have already named it. The new Earth will be called Serpentina, which means in a serpent according to the Theban labeling. Here we have the hierarchy again, and we humans, stuck in a realm of amnesia, are merely puppets without any say in anything. The only thing we are supposed to do is to believe that the Theban Council represents the words of God, and what is about to happen is God's will. Do you know that it's God's will? Now, how will this Serpentina be like? What is the Draconian vision of this future planet? Well, we're not told in any great details, but we learn a few things from listening to Abraxas. The harvest in our ascension into the 5th dimension is not going to happen naturally, but through technology. They are using nanotechnology to make this happen, and they are using more genetic manipulation. For example, where are those new 5D bodies coming from? Why all these alien technology transfer programs over the last 100 years or so? Why this extraordinary investment in nanotechnology here on Earth? The answers to these questions should be obvious by now, but interestingly enough I happened to listen to a Pleiadian CD last night, which was recorded in September 2012, that was on this subject. Synchronicities happens to me all the time these days. They talked some more about the future and how mankind, on one timeline, will come as cyborgs to visit the Pleiades in the future, genuinely thinking that they are looking for their ancestors, their genesis. Today, we already have technologies to take us way out to the stars. No one is interested in the moon anymore now when Mars is in the news, but behind the scenes, Mars is already explored from north to south, west to east. Most of the technology the military has received from ETS has to do with star travel and how to perform genetic engineering and manipulation. So these cyborgs the Pleiadians are talking about are already well underway. Instead of visiting the Pleiades as cyborgs, instigating terrible wars resulting in a great tyranny, we are invited to the Pleiades without our cyborg bodies, and instead, as multidimensional beings we can split ourselves up, soul-wise, the Pleiadians' own words, and travel in spirit over to the Pleiades. They never mention the word nano-travel, but they describe it all the time as something we are going to be able to do in the very near future. However, we must qualify, and this is what they have prepared us for over the last 25 years, and I have helped spreading that messages in parts of my papers, although the idea of nano-travel in my case didn't originate from them. The Pleiadians say that we are already nano-traveling all the time when we are thinking, should I turn left over there, or should I turn right, and when we are going to travel somewhere by car, let's say, and we think about our destination in our head. Then you're already there, but you don't realize it. Real nano-travel, however, requires a little more, but the principle is the same, and according to them, many are soon ready to do it, and a few humans can already space travel in this capacity. But why am I bringing up this? Only so the reader can see what we are looking at here. The Alpha Draconians are obviously not promoting the Pleiadian way to space travel long distance. The Thebans are talking about technology, and we shall soon see for sure that they are. So again, we have the machine kingdom versus nature. I insist that the whole subject on the harvest and ascension with the help from star beings, is an agenda that suits them and not us. Therefore, I hope that as many people as possible who are preparing themselves for the harvest read my papers. It is true that we need to open up our heart chakras in order to be able to see through the lies and step aside from any hidden agenda from not-so-benevolent star races, but the idea of being 51% sto to be able to qualify is pure manipulation. To be able to go to the stars in a non-technological way, we actually need to be quite STS, service to self, in the sense that we need to work on ourselves to qualify, not on others. The reason for this, and I have explained this before, is simple. If we don't work on ourselves most of the time, we don't develop our inner selves, and we also don't let others go through the barriers and obstacles they are currently confronting. There is no way you and I know exactly what another person is up against, and therefore we should interfere as little as possible, so that the other person can get through whatever there is to work on. We can support them morally and by giving them energy and keep an eye on the situation, but for the most part, leave them to experience what they need to experience. Then, of course, we must use common sense. If someone lies injured or passed out in the street, we don't leave them because they need to go through that. We help them. The whole trick is that the more we work on our inner selves, the more we help our fellow man, because every single person who works on themselves contributes to the overall increase of the mass consciousness, and this affects those we care for, but also, the entire humanity benefits. But what about people who are starving to death in Africa because countries like the United States refuse to send them food, and instead throw millions of tons of food away? Shouldn't we go over to Africa and help these individuals? Or protest against the US government? I would say no. Protests and demonstrations only helps the vicious agenda of the power elite. They want us to protest and demonstrate so their police force can be sent out in the streets and create chaos and rage. Then the negative beings behind the scenes feed on that energy. Okay, but what about going to Africa? Well, it's a noble thing to do, and even if each person can only help so many people, at least something gets done. The problem is, that often when the assisting crew leaves the area, everything goes back to the normal bad. My view is that the best we can do, overall, is to raise our own frequencies and spread those vibrations within the ocean of consciousness, and with humankind being one soul group, we can affect each other that way. Perhaps we need both, people who go to Africa and people who raise their frequencies. After all, the idea of helping a starving soul group faction already comes from a higher consciousness. Such people can sometimes, on rare occasions, make an impact that remains after they leave. So, everyone needs to follow their hearts, but I think a good idea is to always remember to work on ourselves. That's the one thing that is most important. 6. Birth of the Starhuman. The name the Thubans have given the new, evolved human race, the 5D ascended human, is Starhuman. Abraxas says that although some of the channeled entities have taught us that those who have less than 51% of their heart chakra open will not ascend and instead be transported to another planet, many light years away, to start all over in their 3D/4D experience, while the Earth as we know it will ascend with the new human race to the 5th dimension, it is not true. Those who don't evolve will not go anywhere, and in the beginning, the old 4D and the new 5D human will live side by side, but the Starhuman will be much superior in their psychic abilities, and will look at the world and the universe with a different pair of eyes. Eventually, the two different species will then separate due to the different range of vibrations. This is similar to what I have talked about, although the Thubans want to create an enhanced human with technology, most certainly in order to create a stronger warrior race. The human body, whether it's the old human, the current race, or the enhanced human, is indeed divine, says Abraxas, and here I totally agree with her, as the reader knows. Every cell in the human body is the equivalent to a galaxy in the universe. The Milky Way galaxy, for example, is one single cell in the human body, and you as a being exists within a single cell in your own body. It's only an illusion that you exist outside of that single cell. An organ, such as the liver, is thus equivalent to a galactic supercluster, a huge amount of galaxies orbiting each other. If we then expand this concept and include your whole body and count all the cells together, we have the whole universe. This is not metaphorically speaking, but literally. So says Abraxas. You alone exists as a whole universe, and the belief that you and I are separated is another illusion. There is only you, nothing else exists. If you were able to 100% understand the implications of that statement, how would it make you feel? I bet it would make you feel very lonely. No one to talk to, no one to bounce ideas with, no sex, no one to share your love with except yourself. So what would you do in a situation like that? Well, if you were omnipotent, you could do anything, so why not just create more of you, but in smaller factions? And why not let these smaller factions explore a cosmos which appears to be outside of yourself, but is in fact a super hologram, like a movie where all your counterparts were interactive? This was exactly what the Mother Goddess did. For billions of years, there only existed a metaphysical universe with a certain amount of dimensions. Her counterparts, separate souls, could travel within this hologram and create freely as they went along. Mother Goddess herself, in her original state, also decided to participate in this game, but with full memory of who she was. In other words, she manifested in the universe as the Queen of the Stars. From that position she was able to create galaxies, stars, nebulae, and planets, etc. All of them sentient beings, operating in different dimensions. Eventually the Queen of the Stars decided to create a lower dimension which was composed of solid matter, and after many wars and battles over real estate, planet Earth was created in its current form. It was meant to house a unique star being made up of the divine fire of the Mother Goddess, the Queen of the Stars, or the Queen of Orion. Each cell/fire in this divine body was, like mentioned above, a galaxy of its own, and within the fire/cell that corresponds to the Milky Way galaxy, you as a separate human being is residing. From within this cell, fire fragment, you can travel freely within the body hologram by using thought, intention, and emotion. This means you can instantly travel to any place within your own universe. When your dense, biological body dies, you still have your avatar, and other astral bodies, like your emotion body, all of which you bring with you after body death. These bodies all still include the cells, fire, soul fragment, or whatever you prefer to call it, so these cells don't disappear just because your body dies. However, your avatar and the rest of your astral bodies are all divine and belong to the human soul group, which belongs to Earth. In other words, you need a human avatar to be able to incarnate on Earth and take full advantage of the human biological, physical body. Other star races, like the Sirians, have desperately tried to imitate the human body and incarnate in it, and even if they know how to do that, they still can't be in the physical and nano-travel. A Starhuman is a Dragonized human. According to Abraxas, this is the difference between the old human and the new Starhuman. Ponder on that statement for a while until we get further into this agenda. What it looks like, however, is that we are going to have 3 different species of humans inhabiting this planet for quite a few generations to come, if the Thubans get what they want. We will have the old human, the Starhuman, and those who refuse to be either or, which is the category I am in. Some people who read this may still be sitting on the fence, wondering if the harvest is still the way to go, moving up the densities and dimensions with the help from our future selves, and in the end it will of course be each person's choice, but I'm far from done here. So let us talk a little bit more about the harvest. 7. The harvesting of souls and the Dragonized 5D Starhuman template. Most people who listen to, or read material from channeled sources usually have a source they are particularly fond of. Some love the RA material and say that it's the best channeled material up to this date, other like the Pleiadians, like myself, some like Bashar, while others like the Elohim and so on. It's quite rare, unfortunately, that people look into all of these materials to see what it is actually all about. This is the only way to find out, however. It's so easy to get stuck with 1 or 2 sources because we think they feed us with the exact information we are curious about. This, of course, is per design. The reason why I had to write this series of papers on channeling was because I started seeing an agenda with the whole channeling community. All these sources had things in common, I noticed that they have a common message, at least most of them. And this is the reason they are contacting us at all. People think it's because they want to enlighten us and help us in our effort to evolve, but that is just a small part of the agenda. The main part has to do with an agenda which concerns them, and from what they try to tell us, it concerns us, too. We have a very special thing in common with these entities, and that's what they are attempting to push through, some in more subtle ways than others. The thing we have in common with these sources is that we are all human and we are all ascending together. This is not just about us, but about them, too, to the exact same degree. They can't evolve further if we don't go to the next level. They will be stuck where they are. I may be repeating myself, and I highlight this because it's the bottom line when comes to their agenda. This is serious, and we indeed stand in front of the most important crossroads we have ever encountered as a human species. Our whole future depends on what choices we are making right now. Researching these papers, all of them, from level I to level 3, has been worthwhile, every second of it. The sad part is that humankind as a whole doesn't have the slightest idea that they are up against the most important choice in history. If they just had an inkling, things would be much different. Now, let's start explaining the harvesting of souls agenda from the beginning. Abraxas, just like the Pleiadians, talk about the nanosecond, but don't call it that. She says, from 1987 onwards, the human group mind experienced a quantum leap in its potential group consciousness, and that's exactly what the nanosecond is all about. The Pleiadians explains that the nanosecond happened in 3 main parts, where the first part was from 1987 to 1996, I believe, and the second part was from 1997 to 2007, and the last part was from 2008 to 2012. Abraxas seems to agree with this. She says that 2008 started the Great Transformation in a midpoint of a warp time loop, beginning in December 2004. The year 2008 would be halfway to 2012, beginning to count from 2004. Abraxas continues. 2009 began the declaration from Dragon Space, meaning the land of the dead above the limiting 8th dimension of what many here term the reptilian agendas. Dragon Space encompasses dimensions, or densities, 9-10-11-12. 2010 will allow 1 in 50,000 inhabitants of the Earth to sow internal seeds for a harvest beginning on the Mayan Nexus date and culminating in an end of all old prophecy in August 2013. In that time period, the total population count of the Earth will have reached the required saturation level of 7.2 billion incarnates. Don't we love the terms she uses, and she uses such terms a lot, like land of the dead. Has a clear positive vibration, doesn't it? The declaration Abraxas is talking about will be posted in the next main section. The second paragraph is certainly interesting. Here she tells us that 1 person in 50,000 will be eligible for the harvest. This, she explains elsewhere, is based on mathematics and prophecies, and is calculated on a population of 7.2 billion people. So, in a way, and I will explain what I mean by that in a moment, the exact amount to be harvested is interestingly enough 144,000. We have heard that amount before, especially in Bible prophecies. In fact, there will be exactly 144,000 people, not 144,005 for example. This is important to understand, because these beings follow prophecy to the letter, and they use advanced physics and mathematics. Also, prophecy is created by dragonhood, allegedly. This gives us some hints if we base it on my earlier research. The Syrian Alliance has claimed the same thing. But let us not be ahead of ourselves. The Pleiadians say that the human population has peaked, just above 7 billion people. They claim that the world population will not exceed that amount, and if it does, it will not be with much. How about 200 million more? The Draconians seem to have a similar view, or they wouldn't have calculated the harvest on 7,200 million people. So, are you 1 in 50,000? Well, if you're not, I wouldn't be too sad if I were you. I hope I'm not one of them either. Well, sure enough, Abraxas mentioned the 200 million that exceed the 7 billion. Around this core of humanity will be 200 million humans, also able to graduate into a new form of humanity. Post-2012 there will so be two different races of humans inhabiting this planet, old humans and new starhumans. So, are these 200 million graduates or in addition to the 144,000? Why does she distinguish between these two figures? Well, there is a reason, and we'll come to that as well. The forum I have been studying for this paper was written in 2010 to 2011 before this particular thread was closed down by Bill Ryan of Project Avalon, but Abraxas was saying already in 2010 that December 21, 2012 was going to be eventless in regards to major events that people can see with their own eyes. She said that December 21, 2012 was going to go by like any other day in people's mind, although the harvest was going to continue unnoticed behind the scenes. Nothing dramatic is going to happen as Earth is continuing its orbit around the Sun, while Mother Gaia is going from the fourth dimension to the fifth. At the same time prophecy is playing out just as planned, but it's not what people think it is. There are not going to be any devastating wars with star beings coming down in spaceships and kill us with laser weapons. Instead, prophecy is going to play out inside of us all. There will be an invasion, Abraxas says, but not a physical one. As we shall see, I was totally correct when I said that the invasion happens on a nano level. I felt chills down my spine when I read about it, because Abraxas tells us 100% the way I told you. There is, and has been, an alien invasion on a soul level, and I will tell you more about that later in this paper. According to Abraxas, this whole situation we humans have had here since we were created by Enki and his scientists, including being manipulated and controlled to the extreme, has been a part of a much bigger plan than just the Syrian alliance needing a slave and eventually, a warrior race. All the torture, famine, disease, murder, rape, and all the rest of it has been necessary for a very specific reason. To be able to become positively harvested, 51% sto or more, the positive energy can only express itself in individuals, and not in group minds. This is also the reason why they have kept us in quarantine for so long. The individual has to suffer through a group mind, however, which is the global elite. That is why Enki had to put the PTB in charge of humanity, and they have to be 95% or more negatively oriented as a group to be able to be negatively harvested, see the RA material or hidden hand. We, as individuals, then have to become solitaries after feeling that we don't fit in, and start looking for our inner guidance. Each individual, prepared for the harvest, will feel like an outcast and have a hermit-like experience, perhaps even questioning the fact that they are human, because they feel so different. I can imagine that many truth seekers feel this way. This, allegedly, is called our christening into dragonhood, and you redefine yourself not as a human anymore, but as an evolved human, which the Thebans, in full, call a starhuman dragon. Abraxas says we are free to replace the word dragon with any other word, but if we do, we supposedly can't draw upon the potent energy of the mimetic complex of the dragon-serpent label, as they call it. This, dear reader, is manipulation on a high level, because people are falling for this. Why? Because they recognize themselves in what Abraxas describes. But we have to be clever, cleverer than they, and be able to see through their manipulation. Once we start seeing a pattern in it, it becomes easier. The solitude a truth seeker feel in an oppressive world is obvious, and the Thebans know this. Therefore, they can play on our emotions to their own favor and thus pull us into the fold whereafter we can be harvested. When Gaia ascends from her planetary status to universal status through her galactic status, all of her human cells can also ascend into cosmic consciousness, says Abraxas. In all this, she is only the messenger who comes forth and appears, because, she says, the scenario is much grander than a planetary transformation or the transition of a galactic civilization. What is to occur is the birth of a new universe. Therefore, she claims, the entire universe and all the intelligences therein will participate in this. If it was just what Abraxas said on this forum, I would have thought she was crazy, but she is not. I am pretty sure she is genuine. Any reader who would look into the forum thread would realize that, too. And additionally, it is impossible to just discard the evidence that exists in form of all the other channeled materials which say exactly the same thing. It's like we have sat back and listened to all these channeled sources for all the wrong reasons. They have had a message for us, and that message has been transmitted all across the line by all channeled sources who talk about the harvest, and a lot of others as well. If we won't ascend, they can't do it, either. But if as many as possible of we humans here on Earth participate in the harvest, the closer they will be to move on. To them, it doesn't matter if we are 51% positive or 95% negative and thus ascend through a negative or positive harvest, as long as we ascend. Because well up the dimensions and densities, the positive and negative will blend together and polarity cease to exist. The thing is that they need all humans here on Earth to ascend, whether it is in this upcoming harvest, the next, or the next after that. The fewer people who will ascend, the longer the whole transition will take. The entire point, which many people will have a hard time accepting, is that there are no aliens in the universe, at least not according to the Thubans or any of the channeled sources. All the so-called aliens are all humans in different stages of development and on different timelines, but they all originate from Earth. There are no other aliens. The ones contacting us are just us in the future. To understand this material that I'm presenting here and now, this paragraph needs to sink into the reader's mind. This is what James Wingmakers has tried to tell us with his esoteric language, as well. So this is what they say it is. All humans are divine and factions of the goddess, and we are spread out through the universe but now, once again working on coming together as one big soul group, or group consciousness. And this is what is meant when aliens tell us we have to forgive them and each other, because we are all one and the same. If we don't forgive each other, we can't ascend. That's the whole idea behind the harvest. This is also what the Andromedans meant when they told Alex Collier that humans are royal. We all stem from the soul essence of the Mother Goddess, the Queen of the Stars. And in all this, what about the Syrians? Well, they are humans, too, according to Thuban logic, and they took on the role of playing the evil guys and created the global elite from their own bloodlines, mainly ENKIs, as a group consciousness who could give us individuals the experience we needed here in 4D before we continue up the dimensions. And the Draconians are our original ancestors, the dragons. They are the Patal, whom the Andromedans talked about, the builders, or the founders, who created the first human template billions of years ago. This human template has the reptilian brain of the Alpha Draconians, and many other parts of it is reptilian as well, and some of it is created out of the Thubans' imagination. Humans were thus created a long time ago on Earth through genetic engineering and constantly improved through more genetic manipulation. When Hidden Hand talked about being Luciferian and the RA material being the best channeled source so far, he was describing himself as being part of ENKI's plot. Hidden Hand was one of the top members of the global elite, but human, nevertheless. He is talking about being 95% negative or more to be able to be harvested to 4th density negative, and that's what the human global elite are hoping for. The RA material is what describes this whole agenda the best, and that's why Hidden Hand mentioned RA before other channeled sources. To understand this paper from an expanded viewpoint, I suggest you read Hidden Hand once again, and you will get much deeper insights than when you read it the first time. http://www.illuminati-news.com/00363.html. In fact, you will probably understand all of it. We know that it takes Earth 26,000 years to orbit the zodiac, and during such a time frame we humans reincarnate exactly 214 times, according to the Thubans. This means all of us. The rest of the time we spend in the astral, in the between lives area. Sometimes, we reincarnate almost instantly after a previous incarnation, but then we have to wait longer the next time. We can even it out that way, but for some reason, which is not clearly explained, we all incarnate 214 times. The math how this is set up is published on the forum. The Thubans say that they are the only beings dwelling in the 12th dimension, which is outside the physical universe. Hence, they are the only ones who know the whole story of the universe, from beginning to end, and all the other star races, different stages of humans, know only part of the story. The higher up in the dimensions, the more they know, while we humans are at the bottom of the totem pole and therefore are the most oblivious. According to both the Thubans and Hidden Hand, what I have told you here is precisely what the powers that be believe is the truth, because this is what Enki and his teachers, like Thoth/Ningishzida has told them, and the Thubans and Hidden Hand emphasize that it is the truth, but it has not been told in full until now, by their messenger, Abraxas, in the body of John Shadow. 7.1. What is the procedure? Now, let us look into the procedure of how the harvesting of souls will be done. But first, let me mention a few things that I believe can be good to know in the context of things. I will put it in list format, because if I go into too much details, this will not be a paper, but rather a whole book. Abraxas insists that the Thuban story is told perfectly in Nag Hammadi, the Gospel of Thomas, for those who know how to read it. This is the reason why this Gospel was not included in the Christian Bible, it was too early to reveal the message therein. When asked whether Nibiru is the home of the Anunnaki, Syrians, Abraxas says it's not, and no Nibiru is going to come into the solar system and create havoc. The real Nibiru is an archetype, and is in fact Earth. Nibiru equals Serpentina equals New Earth, as the new star planet. George Kavasilis also says that Earth is going to turn into a star planet, but according to the Thuban, no one is going to burn up on Serpentina. Serpentina, by the way, will be the name of the new Earth out there in the universe. We have no say in that, it's already established all across the galaxies. The ascension we are apparently about to experience is just as much a descension as it is an ascension. First of all, Gaia is giving birth to herself in the metaphysical plane, but is keeping her physical core, which will be the third dimension. Abraxas compares this procedure with a peach, which has a hard core and a soft fruit meat. The hard core is 3D the way people have experienced it so far, but when Gaia is giving birth to herself, she is adding the fruit meat to the core, and this addition is the astral plane. In other words, the fifth dimension is really the fourth dimension, which is what quantum physicists call anti-sitter space, or the astral plane. So, the astral plane will be available as a part of Earth instead of separated from her. Thus, humans will have access to the astral in their daily life, and no one, regardless of belief system, will be able to deny the existence of the spiritual world. Some will rejoice, others will fear, some will accept and some will try to reject the new reality of the ascended Gaia. No one, say the Thubans, is responsible for somebody else's reaction to this process. For this to occur, some spark needs to set it into motion, and this spark has to happen at the center of the Earth. This spark is the Mayan nexus point, so when Earth is aligning with the galactic center, Hunabku, Earth's hollow core will turn inside out and become a power source and send messages back to the galactic center and the rest of the universe. So it's not the ETS sending messages to Earth, but the Earth sending messages to the ETS. Hence, the SETI program has always been worthless. Lastly, the Thubans, who supposedly are our ancestor and our future selves, need to descend down to our dimension in order to help us ascend. The Thubans see the 4D humans as caterpillars awaiting to turn into full butterflies, 5D. Those who don't graduate will continue living like caterpillars until the next Mayan nexus point, 26,000 years into the future. The 144,000. 1. This number comes from Revelation 21:16, counting the days from September 12, 1975 to December 21, 2012 as building of the Holy Temple. 2. Everyone is the 144,000, but not many can conceptualize this, says Abraxas, and therefore search for something without that is within. In fact, what I have found out by reading her material with a tooth comb, is that the real number is not 144,000, but rather 200 million. This means that 200 million aliens, i.e. non-physicals, have already possessed the same amount of humans who are ready to ascend. And who are these aliens? Of course, it is explained that it's non-physical humans in different stages of development, who will ascend together with the ones who are ready. Now, why would they do that? They are already in higher dimensions, so it sounds pointless. Well, there is only one logical answer to that, and it is that these 200 million are helping the initiate to graduate, i.e. they are Thebans who have descended down here to assist us. Apparently, we can't ascend on our own. So if you feel possessed, don't worry, it's just a Theban who is hiding inside your skull, and it's a good thing. The following is one of the references to what I just said. Ellie is a person on the forum, asking Abraxas a question. Ellie, if it is the latter to be the most right, only 144,000 souls will be saved. I find it wanting to say the least, because with the billions of people on Gaia right now, I know for a fact there are more than 144,000 good souls here who are more than enlightened IMHO. Abraxas, of course, you have misinterpreted the archetype. The 144,000 also become coupled to 200 million, aliens, all of whom again reside within you in the interdimensional sense. And here is a second reference as a reply to Jack, another forum member. Everyone can help Jack, but on the graduate level, your label sick level. It is 1 in 50,000, including 200 million alien walk-in aspects. The Illuminati knows about the Luciferian agenda, Enki and his fallen angels, and that the fourth order of archetypes rules the earth behind the scenes. They, of course, are doing us all a favor by keeping us separated instead of turning into a group soul, which they say is the natural direction in which things go. If we turn into a group soul, we can't ascend from this reality, supposedly, because God redeems itself in the individual and not in the collective. Hence, the PTB work day and night to divide and conquer and always make sure there are polarization, patriots versus peaceniks, Christians versus pagans, etc. This is also why groups like LPGC teaches that there are two factions of Syrians, the Enki clan and the Enlil clan, in order to create polarity. In reality, there is no such division. Whether LPGC is aware of this or not, I don't know, but would assume they are. Information is allowed to be given to us in dream state, because this is the state of unity and not of individuality. Here, information can be given without the awake individual knowing about it. Then, when time is ripe and the person is getting ready to ascend, the information will be there if the person is willing, and understand how to find it. Today, in most people, there is a cut-off between the awake state and the dream state, but once a person has ascended, that cut-off is gone, and the two minds, the conscious and the superconscious, merge and have access to each other. Only those who can break down this barrier or cut-off will be able to have access to the fourth dimension. I already knew this instinctively and have mentioned to a few people that a part of my upcoming book will be about how to break down this barrier. It has to do with conscious dreaming. This is how to become multidimensional. There is a reason why I like the Pleiadians before other channeled material, because they are presenting other solutions to the ascension process. This is a contradiction in Abraxas' teachings, however, because earlier she said that we need to reach the sixth dimension before this cut-off between dream state and the conscious mind could happen, and that it can't happen in the physical. The Thebans mirror what we call the shadow government, the PTB, the Illuminati, and all the rest of it, in what they call the Shadow Council of Theban. They dwell in what we would call the shadow universe, read the 96%, which mirrors the physical universe we and all aliens live in. As the reader can see, Abraxas gave us an endless amount of information before the thread on the forum was closed down. Still, I will not be able to cover all of it, so I suggest the reader goes through the material themselves as well as reading the compressed version here. The URL, again, is http://www.birthofgaia.com/t116-abraxas-t huban-qa. But I also think it's important to read my papers until the end, because I have a lot of comments I'd like to share, whether you agree with them or not. Also, Abraxas refers a lot to the scripture and different Bible passages to compare her message to the Bible, which was, by the way, allegedly written by the Thebans. But let us ramp this up with giving Abraxas' version of how people will experience the harvest. One of the most common question regarding the harvest has always been whether you have to physically die in order to ascend, or will you ascend while in this life, here and now? And if so, will the neighbors, who may not be qualified for ascension, disappear from your reality, or will they still be here? The answer is that you need to die before you can ascend. This, and the following information are of course according to the Thebans, and not my personal opinion. If you would have died, let's say in 2011, and at that time were a graduate, you would have ascended as soon as you arrived in the astral, in the between lives area. However, if you at any time in this life will come to a point where you qualify, you will still live until your lifetime is over, even if you are 30 years old now and die at 85. Then, when you hit the ether, after body death, you will ascend then. When your soul leaves your dead body together with your other light bodies, the Theban soul, who possessed your body, will ascend with you to the fourth dimension, between lives area, and will thus be your spirit guide. There you will be given a fifth dimensional light body, which has been prepared for you, and you will access it. This light body has been modified so that next time you reincarnate, your light body will adjust the RNA/DNA in your earthly body so it corresponds with the frequency of the fifth dimension. Your new ascended body is thus further hybridized. I will add the scientific data here as well for those who are interested and savvy at quantum and subquantum mechanics. In a nutshell, a fifth gauge interaction is required besides the long-range unification of gravitation with electromagnetism and the short-range strong and weak nuclear gauge interactions to harmonize the long-range with the short-range. This interaction engages stationary light waves as consciousness fields from the universal light matrix, of the Heisenberg ZPE. This then is akin a Merkaba aura encompassing the old human body form in a magnetic energy induction termed monopolar EMR. In this manner what you know as mass becomes static electricity coupled in mass parameters to the frequency nature of electric current, not as I equals dq/dt, but as I equals 2f in quantum form. The electron charge quantum becomes a constant coefficient in a differential equation reduced in order from 2 to 1. Some esoteric schools term this the super-electron of Metatron and similar. It is hardcore advanced string membrane physics in the modern usage of the archetype. So, how will it feel to live in 5D? Well, one way to imagine it is to compare it with living in 3D and add the astral world to it. It's always been there and accepted as a fourth dimension, but normally people haven't been able to perceive it. Now, you will be able to see exactly what is going on in the astral. Our planet will become multidimensional and allow a fifth dimensional perception. We will thus be able to function as a planet, a star, and a galaxy simultaneously. Abraxas is adding. Gaia, the planet or old Earth, will transform into a star-planet consciousness coupled to a galactic mother consciousness coupled to a cosmic mother consciousness. Gaia will become the sanctuary of a certain data bank for the entire universe, incorporating all extraterrestrial life forms without exceptions. Of course, multi, like in multidimensional, means more than two, so this term fits with the Theban explanation. However, my own research shows that we have all the possibilities to become really multi-D and be able to move across the dimensions, and visit much more than 5 of them. It certainly feels like they want to move us from one box to another. Our future is so much more than what they describe. The data bank they are talking about is the living library. The opening of the 4D space dimension is programmed to occur midway between the Sun and the star Sirius A. This is some 4.3 light-years from the Mayan nexus point. The Thebans highlight here that the Sirians are our best friends. Figure that. This means that this is the primordial stargate which has been prepared to be opened since June 25, 2008. As of 2011, when the forum thread was closed, the stargate had still not been opened. However, our Sun's stargates have opened, and we can see evidence of that when we look at pictures of the Sunday. Also, some point out that they have seen spaceships coming out of the sun, and a meteor which hit the sun but didn't burn up. This last phenomenon was also mentioned on CNN and couldn't be explained by science, they said. The harvest is simply the fulfillment of archetypes. There are many esoteric sources here on Earth that know about this, but the PTB have decided to emphasize one that is much empowered and is based on the Book of Revelations. This has nothing to do with religion and dogma, but is much deeper embedded in the human psyche. It has to do with the third and fourth orders of archetypes. 7.2. The dragons are here. Yes, the dragons are here, says Abraxas, and they have been here since 2010. What does this mean? It only means that it was then that they descended from the 12th dimension down to the 3RD/4TH in spirit and possessed those whom they consider graduate candidates to the 5th dimension. This is in Abraxas' own words. And the dragons are here, they have arrived and have begun to confront all humans as their invisible mirror images reflecting their fears about their unseen images back to them. The dragons are here to be eaten in the cosmic Eucharist of the Second Coming, waiting to be eaten by the humans who have the stomach and the guts to do so as the heavenly manna of the selfhood christenings. The works of God sometimes proceed in mysterious ways and divers methods, do they not? 7. Jesus said, "Fortunate is the lion which the man eats so that the lion becomes a man, and cursed is the man whom the lion eats so that the man becomes a lion." The Lion of Judah of Revelation 5.5 is the sky blue baby dragon of the Second Coming and its fake image is Yaldabaoth of the Gnostic Lores, secret book or apocryphon of John of the Nag Hammadi Codex. Yaldabaoth is the lion head with the serpent's tail as a first-order archetype for falseness and the true-false dichotomy required redefinition. Yaldabaoth is the Old Testament God and its aliases in mirror image to the I am that I am in distortion I am that am I of Exodus 3.14. In the fire of the burning bush of Moses. Clear as a day, right? No, it's not. They are talking about eating your dragon as a part of the initiation. What does that mean? Well, I don't think it's like physically eating an alpha draconian, but it has a metaphysical meaning that is not clearly stated, and that is for a reason. Only the initiate understands fully what that means, and actually, there were people on the forum who did understand Abraxas' esoteric language, which made her very pleased, and she welcomed them into dragonhood. Some of her language was encoded in such a way that it was only accessible to those who are ready for dragonhood. I am not, and God knows I am very happy about that. This whole agenda sounds like a big nightmare to me and I feel like I want to protect myself with 100 laser-resistant shields to stay away from it. None of it resonates with good love vibrations. To me it's very dark. It would be bad enough if it ended here. I was planning on writing only one paper on the Alpha Draconian agenda, but it will be too long as it is already. And the best or worst part, depending on how we look at it, is yet to be exposed. So I decided to end the first part with copying and pasting the Draconian Manifesto, which basically is the laws and constitutions that are going to be used in the New World. That should tell you something if you can understand the esoteric language as usual when it comes to all these negative sources, it's quite complex and encoded. It's a curious paper and has to be interpreted by each individual, as it may tell a different story to different people. However, some of it will be clearer after the next paper in my series. Does this all mean that the Thebans will stay and dictate the new world? Well, Abraxas is telling us that the Earth belongs to everybody, because all beings in the universe, including the Thebans, are humans. Is that so, or only a justification to accept an invasion? After the next paper, which is going to be very revealing and very evident, you, the reader, will have to decide. I hope you all have courage to look within your hearts, because this is a very old conflict and a very old war, and it's not been told here on Earth truthfully. The dragons can be very convincing, and your mind may flip back and forth into accepting and rejecting, because we so much want it to be true. We want a change, and we want it fast. But do we want a dragon fleet in form of a battleship Galactica hovering above our atmosphere, filled to the brim with 200 million members of the four archetypes, including the Syrians, all landing here on Earth, not in the physical, or course, but in our brains? Well, they are already here since 3 years back. Do we want them as our spirit guides to show up the way to dragonhood once we leave our divine physical bodies and hand them the divine fire we received directly from our own Mother Goddess? Do we think that once they are here, we can distinguish, with our limited knowledge, whether they are right or wrong? Especially as they are already implanted in the brains of those they so carefully have chosen. If you feel that you are one of those who all of a sudden got a spirit guide appearing in your space, I am happy you are reading this, an upcoming paper, because only then can you make your discernment based on factual information. And do not fear, because you have the right to say no. Anytime, and they are chanceless. Give them the trace of a doubt and they have you. Perhaps you feel anyway that you are a dragon inside after have read the next paper? The choice is yours and I can only advise. Can I be wrong? There are supposedly no such thing, it's all about belief systems. At least as long as we are staying in the lower realms of reality. It's a matter of what we want, and what we wish our own future to be. I took a long time to write this paper, because I wanted to make sure you understand the next paper. You see, it's all in preparation for that. I wanted you to understand the term spoken of so you will not get mesmerized by words that only stick in your subconscious, after have been given its Draconian definitions in your dream state. I have tried to take that information up to your conscious mind so that all minds can help each other make a decision. These words will ring in your head while you are reading the next paper, and your decision will be based on what you do with them, or the words of the mighty dragon. We can only be fence-sitters for so long. The time to choose is now, my friends, my human friends. Love. Wes Penre.